I want to make a little follow-up video for our array name search project. Initially, I had put two files, girlsnames.txt and boysnames.txt. And this first line said that the files were put into the bin debug folder. And then when students started cloning them today, we realized that they weren't in the bin debug folder. And the question is why? Because I know I put them in there. It only took a second to figure the answer to that question out. So I'm going to clone this repo. And let's go over and look in our Solution Explorer. And the first thing that we notice is that we're missing some files. I don't see, even if I go over here and I right click, I say open folder in File Explorer, I have a bin debug folder, but there's nothing in it. And the question is, why isn't there anything in it? So let's go back and look at our original folder. And if I go in array name search, excuse me, I don't see a bin debug folder. But yet when I cloned it, there was a bin debug folder. It was empty and it didn't have the files in it. It comes down to this, the git ignore file. So our git ignore file keeps Git from pushing files and keeping track of files that Visual Studio will remake on its own. Okay. So Visual Studio, if I actually run this project, which doesn't have any code in it yet, but I ran it, and I go back and look at that bin debug folder, now all of a sudden I have an exe file in there. So these files were recreated, just like the bin folder and the debug folder were recreated by Visual Studio. We don't push them to our repos because they can be automatically recreated, and why waste all the space being up there? So it was my fault for putting the two text files in the bin debug folder, because if you look at the git ignore file, right here, let me find it. Oh, I already took it out. That's right, I already took it out before I made this video. We had this debug public. We also had one for debug, and we also had one for bin. By default, the git ignore file that Visual Studio creates tells it to ignore the bin file and the debug folder. The bin folder and the debug folder get ignored. Okay, so there's two solutions to this. One, you can come in here and alter your git ignore file, which is, I did that. I took it out. So on this project now, for now on, the bin and debug folders won't be ignored. They will actually be uploaded, which will make our files bigger. And it's probably not the best solution. Maybe I should put those back. The other solution, which I also did, was that in my repo, I put girlsname.txt and boysnames.txt in the main folder. I put it in the root folder now, instead of in the bin debug folder. So anybody that clones it from now on will get those two files. The difference being now, if you want to open those files, you'll have to put in a path that goes up a few levels of folders to find the files. Or you could move the files down into the bin debug folder that gets recreated. The problem with that is if you haven't changed your git ignore file, it won't push them back up to your repo, and that's an issue. Okay. So two different solutions. One, alter the bin debug, alter the git ignore file so that it allows the bin and debug folders to be pushed. Or just keep girls' names and boys' names.txt in the root directory and use a path to open them up in your project. And then you don't have to worry about it because up there they will get uploaded every time.